Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today on this great rainy day. Thank you for coming in. This is the 2018 Central Texas flu immunization kickoff. So I know many of the districts are starting their flu campaigns next week. So thank you so much for all being here. I'm Potan Shahbazi Harman. I'll be your moderator today. This is our agenda. We're very lucky and blessed to be here at Dell Medical School. Thanks to Dr. Johnston for hosting us here. This is a wonderful place. It's a space for the community and community health, and we're happy to be having the conversation here. The agenda today, you should all have it in front of you, but we're going to do an overview of the campaign. Susan Dawson will do that for us. The safety of flu vaccines, Dr. Elizabeth Matsui, Professor of Population Health from Dell Medical, is going to walk us through that. How to set up a successful flu clinic on your campus. Georgie Arenas is the principal of Copperfield Elementary School from Pflugerville. She has had the highest participation rate by students in the flu campaign. We want to learn her secrets today, so thank you, Georgie. We want to talk about the parent voice and parent support. Ginny Sue is here. She's the lead for Immunize Texas and a parent of 2 children at AISD. She's going to talk to us about that and effective strategies for responding to anti-vaccine parents. We have Allison Winnicky, president of Immunization Partnership, is with us today, and we'll be discussing that. And then we have the dream team here. Here they are. So Adrian, Drew, and Jen, who are actually helping many of you get engaged in the Fight the Flu campaign, are here to talk about how to do this more effectively and what we can look forward to and some strategies and partnership opportunities. So Dean Johnston, if I may welcome you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome you all who are here with us today at Dell Med School. It's our pleasure to have you all here, and hope you enjoyed looking around, and this is your school too, so it's wonderful to have you all here. And for those of you who are only joining us, I guess, by video, please make it down, and we're happy to have people come and check out their medical school. First of all, I want to thank you all for taking this so seriously. This is a really important topic. Getting the flu vaccine is really important for all your students and for you all to keep them in class, and for us as parents. So I've got an eighth grader and a 10th grader. My 10th grader's in McCallum, and they need their shots, and we hope their classmates get them. And then that, of course, protects all the rest of us who are going to get our shots as well, but protects the entire community. So it's really, really an important topic. Beyond just flu, we know that you all are really the front line in a number of really critical health issues in our community, that you see them first, and that you're aware of them. And that's such an important role in this community. Our hope is that we can work more closely together to think about, as a community, what else can we do? How can we move beyond what we do today? We know mental health, for example, is an area that requires a lot more attention in this community, and we are taking that seriously, and again, want to working on this Austin State Hospital redesign. It's really not about Austin State Hospital. It's really about how we design our whole system for mental health care in this region. So that's just one example. Obviously, there are many others that we need to work on collaboratively and together. So with that, I guess I'm going to turn it over to Susan Dawson. And again, very pleased to have the E3 Alliance here and working with us on this critical issue. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Johnston and the whole Dell Medical School team for having us here today. I'm Susan Dawson. I'm with E3 Alliance, which stands for Education Equals Economics. We're an education nonprofit that works with school districts and institutions of higher education and nonprofits and business across the community to help improve outcomes for students. So how did we get into this game? I'm going to give you a little bit of the history of how we got here before you talk to the experts. Back in 2011, when there were budget cuts across the country, but certainly here in Texas, our school district partners, our superintendents, asked us to help them with student attendance, because if students are not in school, they can't learn. And it's also the way our schools get paid. We launched in 2011 a Missing School Matters campaign when we looked at the data that said every day that a student misses school, on average, about $38 to $40 are lost in the school budget. That adds up quickly. In fact, the average high school in Central Texas loses $20,000 a week due to student absences. We lose over $90 million across the region every year. So being E3 Alliance, we looked up the data, and one of the things that we immediately found was that while our non-low income students had about the same number of absences as Dallas, Houston, other parts of the state, our low income students had the highest number of absences on average of any region in the state of Texas. Why was this? We didn't know, but we started the campaign. We started working with school nurses. We went to South by Southwest. We put signs on the sides of buses. We said, Missing School Matters. We really need all of those students who can be at school to be at school. And it started working. So what you're looking at is the total enrollment of students throughout the region in those red dots, and then also the total number of student absences. Going back even 20 years, those pretty much exactly correlated year after year until we started kicking off the Missing School Matters campaign. Finally, those graphs started separating, and we knew that we were making a dent on student absences. But it wasn't enough. We had to understand, why were they absent? Why did we have the highest low-income absences in the state? So in 2013, we launched an absence reason study. Interestingly, there's very little data on why which students are absent, when and where. And so we sent extra personnel into school districts to ask, what happened to your student? Why were they not there today? Were they sick? If they were sick, was it a chronic absence that we need to control? Was it an acute illness and we want them home so that they won't be contagious for other students? We took that data to understand how to drive decision-making in a much more detailed way. All of that data is on the E3 website, but the top level is almost half of all absences are due to acute illness. So once we found that out, we said, okay, well, what are the patterns? How does that overlay? What does that look like? And we overlaid our student absenteeism data on the county flu reports. And what we found was that the peaks exactly overlay. The highest number of student absences happened when the highest spikes in flu happened in our counties across the Central Texas region. So we needed to help more students get immunized against the flu. So we knew that we had flu spikes exactly overlaying it. We started looking around at the national research. We found that school-age children are especially important because they're the vectors for spreading the flu to families, to grandparents, to those who are going to miss work now. We found that 90% of children that died from the flu were not vaccinated. We really needed to help protect their health. And while flu shots are available from our partners at Austin Public Health, from our federally qualified healthcare centers, their pediatricians, often they weren't accessible. Families couldn't get to where the flu vaccines were. So we needed to take them to schools because we knew that they were missing more school due to flu than all other illnesses combined. So we launched, after the absence reason study in 2013, we launched the flu immunization partnership with Healthy Schools, who you'll hear from, in 2014 with 6,500 flu immunizations. It was the largest in-school immunization campaign in the state. We almost quadrupled it the following year by 2015. By 2016, over 50,000 immunizations were given at no cost to school districts or families here in the Central Texas region. So we started studying, well, how is this really impacting student absences? And what we did was we collected data from 227 campuses and compared pre-vaccine weeks to post-vaccine weeks. Those schools with the highest participation, no surprise there, had the best improvement in absenteeism, but we also saw that just in the 3 peak weeks of flu season, our schools in Central Texas saved over $500,000 that year just in students being not absent at school. In addition, obviously, doctors' costs, parents not having to stay home from work, all of the other costs on top of that were saved. So now we've added it up since the Missing School Matters campaign launched back in 2011. Over $37.5 million have been saved to schools across the region. And this is not just E3 Alliance, all of our partners working together saying, how do we keep our students in school, mostly so they can learn, so they can achieve, so they can be there to learn, but also because this is how our schools are funded. So 2018, going forward, we're targeting 120,000 vaccines this year. We've already ordered 60,000 vaccines for those students of highest need, our Medicaid, our CHIP, our uninsured kids. We expect to be in over 400 schools in 20 Central Texas school districts, and it starts Monday. The Healthy Schools teams will tell you they're gearing up right now. We've trained clinic operators to start in Hutto, Texas on Monday, September 17th. We need the help of all of our school districts, our partners, our principals, because we need to get the word out that we need students, we need parents to return those consent forms to take part, to keep our kids healthy and in school. I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator, Hotan Shabazi Harmon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Susan. So now let's hear from our panel of experts. And the first up is Dr. Elizabeth Matsui, who is the Professor of Population Health at Dell Medical School. Thank you so much for being here. And I think we wanted to start with a central question that we know it's on the minds of many people. Is the flu vaccine safe and can it be effective? There are folks who've gotten the flu vaccine who say they got the flu and somehow the CDC is not able to get all the strains right. And so please walk us through the health aspects of it and the medical science of it. And we're going to be using these are on the tables and they will catch our voices just exactly right. And here is your clicker.
Great, thank you. So one thing I want to say is I just moved here from Maryland in June, and when I got the invitation to speak here, I thought, gosh, look at this. There's a flu vaccine campaign in schools. This is there are other school districts that do this, but it is unusual and not common. And it is exactly this kind of community that drew me here. And it's exactly the kind of thing that we should be doing in terms of thinking about the health of the whole population and community. The spoiler of what I'm going to say is the flu vaccine is safe and it's highly effective. And I will go into some details here because I'm supposed to speak for more than 30 seconds, but that's the bottom line. So the flu is a bad actor, and I think many people, particularly healthy people, think not a big deal. I've had the flu, or I don't seem to get it. I shouldn't be concerned about it. And the truth of the matter is every 1 to 2 in 10 people will get the flu every year. That's an incredibly high rate of illness. And when you think about schools, that means in a classroom of 20, there are going to be at least 2 to 4 children out for the flu, at any given time. Mm-hmm. The flu causes, in a better season, 100,000 excess hospitalizations a year. In a bad season, 700,000 excess hospitalizations. And children do die from the flu. It is rare, but 180 children died from the flu in 2017, 2018. And this was a tweet that came out from one school system. Schools have had to shut down before because so many children were absent. And so then the education of not just the kids who are sick and missing school is affected, but the education of the whole class is affected because of this. The flu vaccine prevents an enormous amount of illness, 5.3 million flu illnesses, over 2.5 million medical visits and 85,000 hospitalizations. But for kids in particular, it reduces the risk of being admitted to a pediatric intensive care unit for flu or flu-associated illness. That's a big deal. You have to be incredibly ill to merit admission into an ICU. It also reduces the risk of dying from the flu. So what about safety? The side effects are either quite mild or very, very rare. So pain at the injection site is not uncommon at all. Fever, malaise, or muscle aches, so more systemic symptoms that involve your whole body, are also uncommon. They occur in less than 1%. And a serious allergic reaction happens in approximately 1 out of 1 million doses. Mm-hmm. There is a greater risk of dying from everyday activities than there is of having a serious allergic reaction to a flu vaccine, by far. So I want to talk about a couple of issues that come up frequently about safety concerns about the flu. The flu vaccine does not cause the flu. So for the small percentage of people who may get systemic symptoms or symptoms that affect their whole body with a little bit of a fever or muscle aches, that's not the flu. That is your immune system working to produce antibodies or protection against the real deal flu. Sometimes people will catch a cold, which is also different. It tends to be mainly in your nose and your head, and you don't feel like you've been hit by a Mack truck. And they may attribute the fact that they just happened to catch a cold at that same time, around the time they were vaccinated, to the vaccine causing an illness. It does not cause the flu. There's also no evidence that thimerosal, which is a preservative that is found in some flu vaccine formulations in trace amount, poses a health risk. We have spent years and years and years doing many, many studies to debunk work that suggested this might be the case a long time ago. And over again, there is no association between thimerosal and health effects. And in particular, there's no association between thimerosal-containing vaccines and autism. Egg allergy. So I'm a pediatrician and an allergist by training, and we continue to get questions about whether kids with egg allergy can get the flu vaccine. This is a statement signed off on by the 2 Allergy Professional Society and the American Academy of Pediatrics. Studies show that flu vaccines can be safely administered to all egg allergic individuals. The normal precautions for giving any vaccine to any patient should be followed. So there's no reason to do anything special for someone with egg allergy with respect to the flu vaccine. And one of my favorite medical writers is Aaron Carroll. He's a pediatrician. He has frequent columns in the New York Times. He's fantastic. This was a column he wrote last winter. And the point of this column was really about herd immunity, which you've already heard alluded to a couple of times, which is that you don't just get immunized to protect yourself. You also get immunized to protect those who can't protect themselves, because there are vulnerable people in our community who are unable to mount a kind of immune response to a vaccine that would protect them. And we are doing our friends and neighbors a favor by being vaccinated. And my last slide, this is a reminder that certain children are particularly vulnerable to flu. So children with asthma, is illustrated in this picture, as well as children with other chronic health conditions. And I provide the CDC web link there. They have a wealth of information. You could spend hours on their website, and I'm happy to take any emails. If people have questions, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matsui. So we will have a section for Q&A at the end, and also you will have access to a link for this video as well as the PowerPoint. So do not worry, we will make sure you have all the information. It's very important to have a healthcare professional like Dr. Matsui support vaccines and the importance of vaccines and be able to actually explain the science of it, because there is so much confusion out there and the parents are concerned about, is the vaccine safe? Is it not safe? And we thought today we would hear from a parent who is here with us, Ginny. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going out of order because Georgie's sitting there. I'm sorry, I'm just going that way. So let's hear from a school principal. Georgie Arenas is here, and she is fabulous, and she's had the good fortune of meeting a superstar from UT who actually came to celebrate with her.
There's our superstar picture.
That's right. And so Vince actually loves the work that we're doing around flu vaccines. He loves children. He loves anything to do around health. He brought a signed football for Georgie and celebrated with his school. I don't think, Georgie, anyone knew who he was. These kids are so young. But they loved him. They couldn't get enough of him. Look how they're reaching for him. They knew. What do you think? What were the kids thinking when they saw him?
Well, keep in mind, we are a school in Austin, North Austin, and the students may not have known who he was, but the teachers sure did. So, the hype was real. The hype was real. Obviously, the flu vaccination is very important to schools. Missing school does matter. And it's just very important that our kids stay healthy and safe. And so, and just the same as you would promote washing hands and safe practices like that. You would promote protecting yourself with the flu vaccination. I hate to tell you this, I'm not the actual champion. I'm the cheerleader. The champion is the school nurse. And so they are really the ones who have the relationships with the parents and have the one-on-one conversations with the parents. So my role is supporting the nurse, whatever the nurse needs. That's what I provide. And so the first year, we did do hype. And so that helps the teachers push. We made announcements. We made sure we had the returns. And so that was very exciting. We're very lucky. Our school does believe, and our teachers do believe, that whatever it takes. So whatever it takes to keep our students healthy, that's what we'll do. And so the teachers are very good about passing out the forms. My nurse actually drove me here today. In the car, she was pleased to report we're still 2.5, 3 weeks out from our immunization day, and we already have a quarter of our population have returned their forms. So she has continued to build a relationship with families and just make sure that they know it's important. We also, to recruit, we're very lucky too, and I know every school has a core volunteer base. And so we did vision and hearing, and so she connected with that core volunteer base, and that core volunteer will help with the immunization clinic as well. So there's about 4 or 5 volunteers that help with our students, and they're so sweet. They love on our students, and they make sure they kind of serve as the moms for that day, and some dads too. So the moms and the dads that day. So.
Wonderful. So how do you engage the parents effectively, do you think, Georgie? How do you do it? Because you have won consistently year over year in terms of the rate of students who have been immunized. That takes a lot of partnership, as you're alluding to. How does the school community, how does your team work with the parents to help them sign up?
I think it also has to do with keeping it in the mind. So sometimes people do things and then we don't keep it in the forefront. So we make announcements, we have conversations, we talk to the students about it. So, well, of course you're going to do it. Like that's what everybody's doing on, Tuesday. So that's of course what you're going to do. So as a parent too, I know that we have a lot of parents in this room. It's hard to not, before the child even gets sick, it's hard to drag the child to Walgreens or drag the child to the pediatrician. And so just convenience alone. So we promote with the convenience with parents as well. So
wonderful.
So convenience, importance, and then just one-to-one conversations too. If you have a parent that's reluctant, so then we just have conversations with the nurse, has a conversation with the parent, or I could have a conversation with the parent. The teachers are also very good about having conversations with the parent.
And how would you, we're hoping to share this video with principals, school nurses, health directors from the districts. How can they help each other and work with one another? Because you are so critical on your campus as a principal in terms of what happens on your campus and the involvement and engagement. How can the nurses and health directors work with their principals in a more effective way, would you think?
I think we're very lucky with school nurses in the area. I think that they're advocates for community health. And so they would just continue to be advocates and just promote immunization, and so I feel like as long as the nurse was vocal about what they need or the support they need, I think that helps a lot. But I think really the most important thing, especially 1 to 2 weeks out, is keeping it in the forefront of the parent's mind, either through announcements or talking to students or sending letters home. I think that's the most important thing, is that 1 to 2 weeks out, really promoting it.
Fantastic. Now we go to the parent voice. So Ginny, having heard about the importance of flu vaccines, knowing how the school districts and the campuses in particular are working so hard to make sure that students have a good experience, that they are vaccinated, that they get a high return on the forms that they get to send home. From a parent's perspective, what can parents do? How do you get engaged?
So I just wanted to point out,
basically, the reason why I'm so passionate about this is I've seen the effects of flu in the school systems as a parent. My son was in kindergarten last year, and he had not his own classroom, but another kindergarten class that basically shut down. So many kids were sick, and the teacher got sick. Don't forget your teachers, that they had to send those kids into other classrooms because there weren't enough kids there to make up a whole class. And because of the work I do, I know whole school districts in Texas actually closed because of the flu and absenteeism. So this is a big deal. I have here this slide. You know, if you can potentially prevent harm and suffering, why wouldn't you? I think that's an important message to promote to parents. And then, of course, highlighting the after effects if someone in your family gets the flu. I know how hard it is as a parent to manage your children when they're sick. You know, I've met families, they try to do the things where like the sick child is in one room and everyone else is forbidden from going down to that room. You know, that is really difficult, not to mention losing work time. I mean, yes, I can stay home. I have a pretty flexible schedule, but I do lose that work time. And then there are times where I need my husband to stay home to help because let's say I need to run an errand or I have to make dinner. You know, with a toddler at home, I can't do that effectively by myself while also taking care of a sick child. So these are all real effects on families all across Texas. So it's very important to point those things out when someone is trying to brush off the flu vaccine, that their choices have consequences and they can be very serious. I think as parents, you know, it's important for us to be models for our children. We talk about this all the time in our schools, and that should include health. So what's the best way to get your kids to do things like wipe their faces with their napkins or cough into their elbows? You model that behavior. And so I make a big deal in my own house about getting vaccinated. My kids know all about it. My son likes to tell everyone she's doing that so that she can keep everyone healthy. You know, it's a big deal for us. And I also am very active on social media, and that kind of dovetails into what I'm talking about in the next bullet point. You know, reach out to your parent influencers. There are parents in your community, either the PTA president or someone that just volunteers a lot or someone that's in the library. You know, the parents, they are going to be your way to get the message to the masses. I know, for instance, I spend a lot of time, I'm on my PTA board. I spend a lot of time reading the newsletter, and I talk to parents all the time about things that they may have missed in that newsletter because people are busy. So if you can find that parent that's willing to be proactive and talk about the flu vaccine clinic that's coming and how awesome it is and convenient, it's going to save everyone time and save money, have them do the work for you. Tell them to tell their friends, talk about it at the PTA meetings, whatever works for your schools. And then, of course, the last thing is, again, just don't be afraid to use social media. Most school districts and schools themselves have Twitter accounts, Facebook groups. Post about it there in addition to those newsletters. As much as we'd love to think that all the parents are reading our words, that's not always true because as a parent, I got to tell you, I get a lot of paper. I get a lot of paper and a lot of email, and it's hard to read it all. Sometimes that newsletter is like, if I printed it out, probably 5 pages long because there's so much stuff happening at the school. And if you tuck that flu vaccine clinic at the end, no one's going to get to it. So use social media as a way to get across those short messages, like the fact that the vaccine clinic is coming. When are the consent forms due? When is it time to schedule it? Things like that. And of course, again, those parent influencers, I can't emphasize enough. If you have that popular parent that is making those messages known, other people are going to find out about it. So that's really my message today.
Wonderful. And Ginny, you have as your last point, positive stories and spread factual information. Can you speak to that a bit?
So I like I mentioned, I do spend a lot of time on social media, and partly because of what I do with Immunize Texas, I see the misinformation that's out there, and there's a lot of it. And you can, you know, just very, I wouldn't say aggressively, but you can put out the good information. You can talk about, you know, how effective the flu vaccine, that it reduces severity, even if someone still gets the flu, that you cannot get flu from the flu vaccine. These are all the sorts of things that we need more of out there. So if your principals, if your superintendents, if your school nurses are up on this information and putting it out there, that all helps. And I would like to tack on, yes, definitely talk to the kids. I have to tell you, just this past week, Scholastic book order forms went out, And my son is immediately in my face with that order form, going over it with me, talking about what he wants to get. You know, if you get the message to the kids, that is a great way to get to the message to the parents. They will do the communicating for you. So
Thank
All
you,
right.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to hear
and-
from Allison Winicky, who's going to help us understand a little bit more about effective partnership and working with parents in particular and school districts and campuses when there is misinformation, when there clearly we believe in choice. Parent choice is very, very important. Every parent can choose for themselves what's appropriate and effective for their child. But in terms of everyone is entitled to their opinion, but not everyone is entitled to their own facts. So we need to make sure that we have actual truthful facts out there, and maybe you can help us understand that a bit more.
Yes, thank you so much. And so to riff off of this misinformation trend is that something that we have noticed is that a lot of parents who we know have non-medical exemptions to vaccines for their children, for whatever reason that may be, partially due to misinformation. We're seeing a new trend where they are coming to the schools and coming to the school districts with other types of misinformation, a little about the law, and not necessarily understanding the law and asking school districts to do things that school districts do not have to do or should not do. And so I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of background to help with that and offer up as a resource. So, you know, one thing that I would just point out if you're dealing with folks in your district who are, you know, against a flu campaign or immunizations in general, is that this is not a new thing. You know, we have had requirements for school immunizations for years and years and years. You know, our first, we recognize that immunizations are safe and protect humans and children since 1796. And, you know, all the way back in 1809 in the US, we already were having authority for locals to make school requirements. In 1827, Boston had their own requirements for school attendance. So this is not a new thing. And it's something that we do consider to be safe. And so as you guys know, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, is that, you know, when we're talking about immunizations in school, a lot of these come from our Department of State Health Services. And so not necessarily all of the regular education law. And that's how we kind of get into some little questions. And so I just put here as a reference for required, you know, the difference between provisional enrollment and exclusion. But basically, folks for required immunizations, they have to be immunized. And there are some very, very narrow exception loopholes, and you guys can have this documentation later with its legal citations. I'm happy to answer stuff offline. But there are basically two types of exemptions. They're medical and non-medical, although we call them reasons of conscience here. And we have a lot of them in Texas. So this last year, the Department of State Health Services told us that almost 57,000 Texas school children have non-medical exemptions to the vaccine requirements. That is a lot of kids. And this is also trending, this takes into account population growth. When they first changed the law to expand that folks could get these expanded non-medical requirements in 2003, we had 0.08% exemptors. Now we have over 1%, and that is huge. It is a 22,300% increase over the last several years, which is really crazy. And how many people is that? I'll just give you guys an example. The number of children that we have in the state of Texas who are not immunized for non-medical reasons are more children than are born in each one of those blue states every year. It's more children than are born in the whole state of Oregon or Oklahoma or Arkansas. So it is a lot of kids. And that's why it's such a big problem in the state of Texas when we're talking about those numbers. But what makes it an even bigger problem is that those exemptors cluster in school districts. And so you will see the districts that are the counties that are shaded darker have exemption rates that are well above what is medically acceptable for exemption rates. We really, to maintain that herd immunity, it has to be extremely, extremely high. And so I just wanted to sort of show you, some people say, oh, over 1%, that's not a big number. But when you have, 9% clustered in your county, you have a really big problem. And there is no coincidence that when we have seen outbreaks for vaccine preventable diseases this year, that they show up in these counties where the exemption rates are high. And so even though the flu vaccine is not a required vaccine, it is a recommended vaccine by both the Centers for Disease Control and the Department of State Health Services. And schools are required by law to actually post information about flu vaccines on their websites. And I just really wanted to touch on this really quick because some piece of misinformation you might hear is related to excluding students who have non-medical exemptions from school. Mm. They may be excluded from school if there's an outbreak in the school. That's in the law. So there's your citation right there at the bottom. So this is what I want to talk about, what schools are required to do and what they are not required to do. So if schools have a website, they have to post all of the required immunizations on the website in English and Spanish. They have to post all the recommended immunizations, which includes the flu vaccine. And if the school knows what districts offer the flu vaccine or what clinics offer flu vaccine in the districts, they have to post that too on their website. That's in the law. They also have to post a link to the Department of State Health Services website. So quickly, I will go through a couple of issues sort of in the social media sphere and how folks connect. You want to make sure, with your school that you're proactive about monitoring social media accounts because that's how a lot of folks communicate right now. And, something that's always a concern is once a piece of misinformation gets out there and it gets posted, if it's not addressed properly, the misinformation will continue to spread. And like you've heard from all of our excellent panelists here, it's all about protecting our students. It's all about making sure our kids are safe. And so we want to make sure that message is out there and accurate, and if needed, to correct false or inaccurate information. And again, cite our great authorities that we have, right here in the Central Texas region, at the state, at the CDC, all across the country, to sort of back up any of your factual claims. But again, it's not a debate. You're not necessarily trying to change any minds here. You're just making sure that correct information is out there for folks to make the correct decisions for their own personal health and the health of their children and their family. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Allison. My goodness, that's wonderful. Thank you for all that information. So now we are going to shift over to the Healthy Schools team, and Adrian, Drew, and Jen are going to introduce themselves and what they do, and they have a fun way of introducing themselves today.
Hi, I'm Jen Daniel, and I manage the Healthy Schools Central Texas office here in Austin. And this will be my second year running the clinics for this area. Some background on me, you can read up there, but I've 18 years of public health work. I've spent most of my career in government, wide variety of projects. I think the one that got me interested in immunizations is when I worked for CDC WHO for a stop transmission of polio program in the Philippines. And it just kind of took off from there, my interest in getting kiddos vaccinated. So this year, this afternoon after I leave, I'll finish training my nursing staff for this year. We've got over 100 staff signed up, so I'm excited about that. And I'd like to see my neighborhood kiddos vaccinated. I live between Norman and Sims Elementary Schools in East Austin, and so I see these kids out in the streets playing and stuff, and I drive by and see them out in the playground, and I'm like, this is why I do what I do, to get those kids vaccinated so they continue to be healthy out there. So, and we like to put my chicken up there because I am a crazy chicken. That is a grand champion hen. And someday I hope to have a little farm outside of Austin so I can have all my animals. So that's a little bit about me and Eaton.
Cool. Great. Hi, my name is Adrian Cardona. for the last about 15 years, have been working, doing community organizing and working in after school programs, doing a little bit, changing laws in Chicago around just youth and trying to help them prevent violence out there. And then when I came to Texas, working with Boys and Girls Clubs here and working with about 17 of their programs and making sure the quality program is there, make sure kids are coming and they have a really good, safe place to be. So that's where a lot of my work has been for the last like 15 years, really making sure that kids were safe and that they were healthy and they had a good place to be. And so that's always been something I care about. So similar to what Jen said, I really want to make sure that kids are, have the ability to get the shot and they know about it. I think a lot of communities that I was working with in the past, a lot of that stuff wasn't given to them or they weren't aware of it. So I want to be able to make sure that they do know about this program and that it is free for them. A fun fact about myself, last year, almost 2 years ago, I found a van outside of, I found a 79 Volkswagen bus in Smithville in a barn, and I tore it apart and redid it. And then that's a picture when going out to California. And I drove it out there this December.
Hey everybody, my name is Drew Winton. I may work with some of you guys directly, but if not, looking forward to helping you guys out any way I can. So a little background about myself. I'm a mentor with communities and schools out here in the Austin area, and I found out about Healthy Schools and said, hey, where do I sign up? And so pretty much a week later, I was hired on, and now here I am. So my goal this year is to immunize 120,000 kiddos. We just placed a huge BFC order with the state, and they were like, wait, what? Can you repeat that again? But, we're going to make it happen. They're going to pull some strings for us, and we'll have enough vaccine to cover all of Central Texas. One fun fact about me is I never had a stout in my entire life, believe it or not, and hopefully don't ever plan to have one ever. Not for me. All right, so let's talk about a couple things we learned from last year. So of course, parents are excited about the program. It provides a lot of convenience because a lot of these parents don't have the time or, just a place to take off work to get these kiddos vaccinated. And of course, the no cost of the service. There's no catch. My little catchphrase is no insurance, no issues, right? Because that's the first thing a lot of parents ask me is, hey, what about if we don't have insurance? So of course, adoption rates for the signups vary from school to school in every district. I went and spoke with a couple of schools in all the districts I'm servicing. And what I found out is some of the best practice that they're doing is that some schools are being more hands-on with the program. And with that, I saw that, the parents were actually getting walked through the consent process because sometimes parents don't understand that, and may not speak English or Spanish. So, being more hands-on with that to make sure that the kiddo has the opportunity to sign up. Another one is that making sure they have the materials. A lot of these schools, they weren't putting the consent forms in the back to school packets or those Wednesday folders, so parents weren't aware of the service. They didn't have the opportunity to sign up. So those who are doing those steps, we're seeing higher increased rates of signups for those kiddos. All right, so a resource we just came up for the districts this year. This may be a repeat for some of you guys, but I think it's super important that everyone knows about it and knows how to navigate the documents. It is the infamous communications toolkit, right? So every district has a specific communications toolkit that we developed for you guys. It ranges from text message to emails, robocalls, social media posts, pretty much one-stop shop document for community outreach. So we think it's super critical that every school has access to this documents. It's totally up to them if they want to utilize it, but we are seeing the schools who are because we're having higher increased rates of signups, right? And so through each communication method, there is a unique URL associated with it. So at the end of the year, districts will be able to see, hey, Facebook post was 10 times more active than a Twitter post. So that way you guys can utilize those outreach methods for other programs you have going on within the district. So basically, through the social media posts and the communications toolkit, it provides the convenience for parents to sign up directly through the smart device. And instead of having to go through the paper consent process and adding more workload to your staff, they can sign up directly online and have it done in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll pass on to Adrian.
So the communications toolkit, well, again, this is the first day that we developed it and we made it. Really what we want to do is have a couple of themes throughout the week so that parents know what this is all about. So kind of the first thing that they're going to get the first week when school starts is really introducing who Healthy School is I think that for some of the new districts that we're working with, they don't know who we are. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable with us. They know who we are, what we're providing, how our service works. The second week is we'll be just talking about what happened in 2007 and the effect that the flu had on the community, the effect that the flu had in Texas. And then 2 weeks before our actual clinic, we want to start talking about just some of those myths that they're hearing and how to debunk those myths. Again, all these messages are going to be coming through either email, through text messages, through Facebook, through Twitter. We know that we want to be able to hit a lot of different people in a lot of different ranges. Some people want very quick, fast, just a quick, Facebook post that's, only like 20 words, and they can just hit a link. And some people want a whole message in email, so we want to be able to diversify our messaging so that we get the right message to the right people. And then the last week, right before our clinic, we just want to hit them again and kind of talk to them about how to drive up how do we get people to sign up online. And so this is just an example of one of the comms kit that everybody has. So the first week, again, you're going to be seeing social media posts, emails directly, robocalls. Everything is already built in for you guys. So there's no really, what do I have to write, or what is this, what is the messaging? I want to make sure the wording is right. We kind of built everything out, and everything is already set for you guys to really copy and paste, and you guys can just throw it onto any website, any Facebook pages, anything like that. Again, just social media stuff. We want to, we know that we can hit a lot more people and a lot more parents directly. We know that sometimes we send a flyer home and it gets stuck in a book bag and it gets stuck in a folder, and sometimes the kids don't want to give it out to parents. We know that maybe some kids just don't want to get a shot, and so they're going to be sure that mom and dad don't see that. So that's why we're really using social media and those kind of messages. Really kind of, we're able to go directly to parents and really talk to them most directly. When we talk, and then we also have new relationships with Immunize Texas, kind of help us out with the messaging and make sure that we're getting the right message out.
So just to kind of review everything we just discussed, getting those forms and flyers out, that's huge, especially getting them in your back to school packets or whatever folders go out typically with your students. Get that home to the kids or to the parents. And then using the communications toolkit, I think is super important, especially this year. We didn't have this before. It was all paper form. And now that we have this digital, online registration, that makes it so much easier, because if those forms aren't getting home to mom and dad for whatever reason, you're sending out these social media messages, email, and parents just click on that link and they sign their kids up. So taking advantage of these toolkits is super important. And then the operations on the day of the clinic. Knowing your schools, knowing that they're actually having a clinic is important. Sounds crazy, but that has happened to me a few times last year. So designating that person at your school, usually it is the school nurse who is helping to coordinate that clinic, but your front office staff knowing what's going on. And then of course, like Georgie here, who supports as the principal for school, really supporting and championing the program. That is huge. So just knowing what's going on the day of the clinic, and volunteers, because this is a true partnership. We can't come into your schools and just run this on our own. Yes, that would be easiest for you all, but to get through the doors and to be able to provide the service, we do need your partnership. So whether it's collecting forms, identifying a space for us to set up and actually have the clinic, super important, and we recognize the burden and the time and energy on behalf of the schools, and thank you all for that. So when those things are identified and you have the person in support, and whether it's parent volunteers from your PTA, or if you have students that are like in health profession classes, it's a great experience for them. Plus we're getting the benefit, the schools and us as Healthy Schools, as their help to help these clinics run efficiently. Yeah. So again, I'm just going into the best practices and skipping ahead, I guess. So volunteers, super important. And just making sure that schools, the actual campuses, are aware that this is happening, that they know their date, their time, and to expect like a big box of forms to come in. We've heard things in the past that they were put in a refrigerator because they thought they were vaccine. So just people being aware that this is happening. Yeah, and then we do have a period of time after the shot is given that we observe the kids, just in case, knock on wood, that there's a severe reaction, that they're hanging out. And we've had some of our districts suggest having like coloring books or sheets of paper for kids to color and keep them entertained, because you got to corral them. Let's see what else. So I think just mostly having the support of the school, and especially, your teachers on board with this, and your principals and all the administrators, like seeing the value in this. It really helps the clinics to run. And there's our contact. I know most of you have our contact.
Thank you. This is great. So if anyone has would need to reach them, here's how to reach them at this point.